Councillors, good morning. It is 9:04 and we will open today's Planning and Regulation Committee meeting. Good morning to all committee members and visiting members. Of course, we extend that good morning to our assembled gaggle of city officers and our support staff here today. We acknowledge Acting EGM Nikki Moore as well, up on the big chair. Good morning, Nikki. Councillors, we will kick straight into things. We have no attendance or apologies and no leave of absence to deal with. Confirmation of the minutes. Is anyone wishing to raise any concerns with the minutes of the 858th round before I seek a mover and a seconder? In that case, is someone happy to move the minutes of the previous round? Councillor Gates, seconded by Councillor Doran. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. I am not aware of any conflict of interest declarations. Can I just check with committee members? Very good. That moves us to the starred items. Councillors, items that we'd like to deal with separately. Nothing we wish to unstar today? Very good. Councillor Doran moves the start items. A seconder. Councillor Patterson. All those in favour? Against? That is all the start items moved, which I think might be a new record for planning. Which leaves us with item 6.1 is the only item to deal with today. We welcome officers to the chamber.
Through the chair, good morning. This slide provides a snapshot of the volume of permit applications processed by the temporary road closures team over the past 5 years. To ensure a robust assessment and minimal disruption to the road network, the notice period varies depending on the level of impact and the subsequent coordination required with different stakeholders. The notice periods are based on an application being properly made, which includes having approval to complete the works and providing a traffic management plan that clearly details the who, where, when, why, what and how the city's road network will be managed to support a safe and efficient road network. The team has experienced a steady increase in applications each year, peaking in 22-23. The upward trend reflected increased activity and demand for road access across the city, primarily due to development. The applications were structured around specific construction activities to align with the methodology outlined in the approved construction management plan, which depended heavily on access to the city's road network. As a result, the temporary road closures team had limited scope to challenge or mitigate the impacts, causing frustration in their efforts to uphold the city's statutory responsibility to maintain a safe and efficient road network. Simultaneously, construction project managers face challenges in meeting project timelines and budgets due to the constrained flexibility and delays in obtaining permits. In response, we undertook a comprehensive review of the application process and engaged with several construction companies and the city's development compliance team for a more streamlined process. The outcome was the implementation of the traffic pre-lodgement process and the introduction of operational permits for 3 months based on an acceptable daily impact rather than specific construction activities, which has seen a more collaborative approach to developments and a gradual decline in the volume of applications. The traffic pre-lodgement process has significantly improved how we manage applications. It allows the temporary road closures team to review draft construction traffic management plans and construction management plans before formal submission, provide early feedback to negotiate acceptable impacts, and issue approval in principle to the traffic management plan. The benefits of this process have been substantial for all stakeholders. It has enabled early alignment with construction companies, improved clarity and efficiency in project delivery, allowed the issuance of 3-month operational permits for acceptable daily impacts, established a shared understanding of high impact applications across the project cycle, and improved stakeholder coordination while reducing administrative burden. Initially, the team aimed for 20 business day turnaround. However, the negotiation and documentation process is currently taking an average of 30 business days. When combined with the minimum 15 business days required for permit approval, the total time frame before construction can commence now averages 45 business days. In response to ongoing challenges with road closures applications, it became clear that a more structured approach was needed. Specifically, it was identified there's a need for a framework that would help construction companies better understand what constitutes an acceptable impact to the city and provide traffic management companies with clear guidance on the essential components of a construction traffic management plan. A comprehensive draft document was developed and feedback was sought from several construction companies, the Urban Development Institute of Australia and the state government, primarily Transport and Main Roads and State Development Infrastructure and Planning. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Many construction companies appreciated being included in the process, and this collaborative approach fostered a strong sense of partnership while also delivering valuable insights from industry experts. All feedback received was carefully reviewed, with suggestions considered and incorporated where appropriate, provided they aligned with the city's criteria for acceptable impacts on the road network. This ensured the framework maintained its integrity and intent, balancing the operational needs of the construction industry with the city's commitment to minimising disruption and maintaining road safety. The Temporary Road Closures Acceptable Impact Guideline not only reiterates what should be included in a construction traffic management plan, but also introduces guiding principles for acceptable impacts based on road classifications. These are divided into Category A and B roads. Category A roads, as you can see on that screen, are those with fewer than 7,500 vehicles per day and located more than 500 metres from school zones or high-use amenities. For these roads, low to medium impact activities such as verge or footpath closures, hold and release operations, lane closures and work zones are supported in principle from Monday to Saturday between 6:30am and 6:30pm. High impact activities such as road closures with detours or limited access are supported in principle from Monday to Friday during the same hours. Category B roads are those with more than 7,500 vehicles per day and located within 500 metres of a school zone or high-use amenity such as beaches or parklands. While the types of acceptable impacts are consistent with Category A, the timing restrictions are tighter due to higher traffic volumes and proximity to high-use amenities like schools, hospitals and recreational areas. Impacts are limited to Monday to Friday, and the specific times are determined using traffic data to avoid peak travel periods. High impact closures are restricted to night works between Sunday and Wednesday nights. As a guiding principle, closures are not supported on Saturdays and Sundays. This is to ensure uninterrupted public access during peak community use periods, such as weekends and school holidays, support the amenity and enjoyment of these spaces for both residents and visitors, and reduce the risk of noise, dust and traffic disruptions during times of high foot traffic and recreational activity. These restrictions reflect our broader commitment to ensuring that construction activities are planned and executed in a way that respects the needs of the community. By aligning our permit conditions with traffic data and community use patterns, we're able to support both infrastructure delivery and public amenity. Pedestrian safety remains a top priority for the city, regardless of road type or traffic volume. That's why the same guiding principles apply across all road categories when it comes to managing footpath closures. As outlined in the framework, footpaths must remain open outside of construction hours. This ensures that pedestrians have uninterrupted access during evenings, weekends, and other non-working periods, which is especially important in high-use areas. In cases where the Ocean Way requires closure, a sidetrack must be installed. This sidetrack must meet the minimum standards for a shared path and be Disability Discrimination Act compliant, ensuring accessibility for all users, including those with mobility challenges. These requirements reflect our commitment to maintaining safe, accessible pedestrian routes while balancing the operational needs of construction projects. By enforcing consistent standards across all road categories, we're able to protect public access and support community wellbeing without compromising on safety or inclusivity. By adhering to these principles, the framework aims to facilitate the development of high-quality construction traffic management plans that balance construction needs with community and stakeholder expectations. It's a proactive step towards improving transparency, reducing delays, and ensuring construction activities are planned with the broader public interest in mind. The framework is designed to streamline the application process, improve consistency, and deliver safer, more predictable outcomes. By following the guiding principles, applicants benefit from faster pre-lodgement reviews, clearer expectations, and more efficient approvals. The benefits are tangible: a projected 50% reduction in pre-lodgement time, improved construction traffic management plan quality, lower costs for applicants, and stronger safeguards around high-use areas, particularly on weekends. It also increases accountability for temporary traffic arrangements and builds public trust that approved projects are being delivered safely and with minimal disruption. Importantly, if a submission does not meet the guiding principles, the Temporary Road Closures team will still assess it on its individual merits and in accordance with Local Law 11. However, this process will take longer due to the need for more detailed review and negotiation. This underscores the value of the framework not as a rigid rulebook, but as a practical pathway to better outcomes. It supports construction delivery while protecting the amenity, safety, and expectations of the community. In the long term, this means quicker project delivery, reduced cost, higher quality documentation, and most importantly, greater community confidence in how we manage our road network. In addition to delivering the framework for acceptable impacts of temporary road closures, officers within the Temporary Road Closures team were directed to consult with divisional councillors prior to approving road closure applications and any subsequent extensions of time. While consultation is an important part of the decision-making process, requiring it for every application is neither practical nor sustainable. The City receives over 4,800 temporary road closure applications each year, and mandating consultation for everyone would stretch operational capacity, increase administrative burden, and slow down our ability to respond efficiently to applicants. Instead, the current approach, prioritising consultation for high-impact closures, strikes a more effective and balanced model. Approximately 655 applications per year fall into this category and already trigger notification to divisional councillors. These include verge or footpath occupations for infrastructure such as overhead gantries, Ocean Way closures for seawall works, and full or half road closures with detours or limited access. In addition to these, if the acceptable impacts guideline is adopted, the team will consult with divisional councillors for any impacts that fall outside of the guiding principles. This ensures that significant impacts are carefully considered and that local knowledge and community interests are factored into the decision-making process. This targeted consultation model allows the city to focus resources where they're most needed, maintain transparency for significant closures, and support timely project delivery while still protecting community amenity.
Thank you, Rav. Councillors, questions for officers? Councillor Young, then Councillor Fowler, followed by Councillor Mutton.
Thanks, Chairman. My recollection is that this whole review arose from the concerns about impacts on our roads where there's construction activity undertaken and developers are seeking to utilise the road network for their purposes. But obviously there's other applications which include our own roadworks, and in particular I'm thinking of one in Gaven that's occurring at the moment. So my questions are framed around that experience rather than the construction company overtaking part of the road or footpath network. And in this respect, I have a couple of questions. So first of all, I received a notification on Thursday afternoon, the 28th, last Thursday, to advise me that I had 3 days to provide a response on a proposed extension of a road closure which has resulted in a very significant detouring of traffic through minor streets. The implementation of this was to take place 2 days later, so obviously I didn't have 3 days to respond. I didn't have virtually any time whatsoever. I had to seek advice from the project manager, which has only just come through this minute. So the implementation of this extension of the road closure has taken effect already. And I just wonder if we've got the process right here, because it seems I'm the last person to look at this approval, and I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to run things in parallel so that the Divisional Council is advised of something, this is being considered, and then technical people can look at things from their perspective rather than wait for that technical analysis and then at the very last minute go to the council and say, this is taking place tomorrow, you know, what are your thoughts?
I have a suggested change when we're ready.
Thanks. It's a loaded question. Sorry, Chair.
All right, through the chair. To answer that, and can I just confirm you're referring to internal works?
Yes.
Yes. So we are currently, the temporary road closures team is currently reviewing the internal work instruction. In line with, if this framework is adopted, we will be developing a similar framework aimed at internal projects. So we do have challenges at the moment with internal works and notification, and it's a matter of timing. So we're trying to communicate more clearly with our colleagues that we require more time. But saying that, the internal projects, our expectation is they've already consulted with you. But yes, we can certainly take that on board and improve on that.
Yeah, so I just wonder if you might open your mind to looking at the two things in parallel so that councillor doesn't come right at the end. There's an early advice, this is happening, we're looking at this, have you got some thoughts? And then the technical assessment can take place so we're not just piggybacking one on the other.
Could I just pick up on that for a sec?
I just want to check quickly. So, Councillor Young, you're clear on that this particular report today doesn't have anything to do with internal works? That's a separate piece of work to come still?
Yes, I accept that. Thanks, Chair.
Yep.
But I just wonder if that might apply in this case as well.
That's right. I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure we were clear on that, and I think the team has heard that, and I've heard that notional feedback from others as well of a similar circumstance. And when you'd hope it's our own internal delivery program that we might be able to be in a better position than that. Dan, did you have? Did you have a follow up on that particular point?
Just on that one. So I realise this is not for internal, but it does beg the question: why does the internal teams not have the same process they're required to follow? So why wouldn't this just apply to the internal construction team?
It's still a construction management plan, isn't it?
Or a traffic construction management plan? But that's my question. Can you?
Yeah.
Correct. Through the chair, it depends on what the works are that are being carried out. So the current work instruction allows for low impact works for them to proceed without coming to the temporary road closures team, and that's primarily around the volume of work that the city performs. For major projects, it should be going through a gateway process, and they do come to us for consultation at the very beginning in the planning stage. So it just varies on a case-by-case basis.
So, Rav, as a practical example, so if there's a road resurfacing project happening in a division and there might be a single day lane detour that won't come through your team, that can just be done through the road resurfacing team. But if it's a 6-month road rebuild, that would come through your team.
In a nutshell, yes.
Yep.
Yes, if there's high impact, it will come to our team and we'll make recommendations of timing based on traffic volume, but it does depend on the works.
Yeah. Does that explain a bit of clarification for you, Councillor Doran?
It does.
Yeah, please.
It does, thank you. I just, when you do the next body of work, because noting this isn't relating to this report, the definitions that you prescribe to minor, I think you used the different term, Rav, would probably be interesting to note, because the impact is quite great on the community, although you can't look at all of them. The impacts can be quite great when a road's closed, and so I just wouldn't mind knowing those criteria so that we can manage community expectations when you do the next body work.
Yeah, fair enough. Other questions, or Councillor Gates? Oh, sorry, forgive me. I had a list there, didn't I? Councillor Fowler was next, and Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I just had a question just about these types of external projects and how we prevent the temporary continuous, I guess, occupation permits being renewed indefinitely. Like, is there, in the guidelines that you created, is there some part of that should be included that we cap renewals at 24 months, for instance, or whatever that might look like? Is that something worth looking into?
Through the chair, we're at the mercy of the development. So if it's a 2-story building versus a 50-story building, it could be, sort of 12 months, 3 years. What we do is in the pre-lodgement process, we identify the time frame of the build, and then for any operational permits, we issue them for a maximum of 3 months to allow us to keep that oversight of the road network. And we also condition that the permit may be suspended, cancelled at any time. There's also a condition in there that events may take precedence.
Okay, thank you. I also just had a question about who adjudicates the multiple nearby projects overlapping. So is that when we have these applications come through from developers, or maybe we have a project in the area, a developer has a project in the area, the state has a project in the area, who's keeping eyes on those road closures from an overlapping perspective?
Through the chair, primarily our team, the temporary road closures team. We map all these closures, and part of our assessment is conflict management. And again, depending on what the conflict is to whether the latest application can proceed or whether they need to hold off and work together.
Just one final one, Chair. I know we're not talking about local today, but I think what would be really helpful, external where it's possible, but particularly internal as well, is that when we're getting these temporary full or half road closure notifications through to the office, we don't have any consultation at the moment that comes through except for that one email. It would be really helpful if we could have a map or just the traffic plan, whatever's possible, because usually a council will then request, could I please have the map or the traffic plan? If that actually came with the one piece, that would be very helpful.
I think that's a good last point, and I don't mind because there's a piece of work to come back on this, so exploring the internal element, but I think that's a very fair point. I reckon every single one of them in the last 6 months, the first email back is, can I have the map, please? Normally because we want to communicate it, but just to be able to understand it, because traffic management plans are sometimes a bit technical to understand, and the map makes it easy. Councillor Martin, your question next.
Thanks, Chair. Question on the Verge footpath closure. And I noted in the guidelines it was just there's a detour within 500 metres. My question was around disability ramp access, just making sure that's that's considered. I know on the Oceanway that's called out that it has to be a DDA detour. Does that same apply for a verge footpath closure?
Through the chair, yes, it does. So they need to send the pedestrians through an existing approved pedestrian facility, or they need to provide like for like. So if it is only a 1.2 metre footpath, that's all they need to sort of provide, but it needs to be the same surface.
Thank you. So that 500 metres has to include that if it's crossing a street, for instance, it has to be a proper gradient ramp, pedestrian ramp.
Correct. It's either existing, so whatever is current standards there, that is at each corner. Or if there is not one on where they propose to detour, then they'd have to install one. And depending on the time of works, how long the works take, whether that would be a rubber matting temporary ramp or a cracker dust type. But yes, it must be DDA compliant.
Thank you. And just one more question, Chair. I think when we get the notifications from, if it's a developer notification, it's very good with the maps that is going to residents. Just wonder, often the question I have is, who did it go to? When did it go to? The actual communication. I just wonder if that is communicated to the city around particularly which houses have received the communication, and if that could be made available to councillors just so we know which houses did get it.
Through the chair, absolutely. We seek a map of distribution from the applicant so we can share that with you.
And just on that, so is that currently worked into the guidelines, that map of distribution to go to councillors, or are you happy to include that going forward?
We can adopt that on a daily basis regardless of the guideline.
Okay, fantastic.
Rav, would you mind
Appreciate
quickly, I'll come to you in a sec, Councillor Gates, just so that it's not a preset kind of radius of how many people get the letter, isn't it? It's on a case-by-case basis. You determine how many people should get that notification of what the temporary structures are going to be.
Through your chair, yes, absolutely. Yep. It depends on whether it's like a rat run or whether it's just those residents that will be impacted.
Yeah. But I think, Councillor Martin, that's a really fair thing to add in. If you've got that map, it makes it easier and you can have a little bit more input on possibly if it should go somewhere else, or if you wish to then maybe go letterbox drop an area and say, be aware of this.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Neal, was your question on the back of Councillor Martin's or a separate issue? Cool. I know you've got a change recommendation. Do you have a question first, or are you happy for me to take Councillor Neal's question? No. We'll take questions first and we'll come to a change recommendation. Councillor Neal.
Thanks, Robina. Just with the Oceanway and having to put a side track, I know that that's just a sort of a newish guideline for developers, and I know that some of them were a bit upset because it is quite costly. But and it's working very well, by the way, and the residents really like it. I'm just worried about the dune. I know that in one particular case, the beaches team were consulted, but do they oversee when these side tracks are put through a dunal area and how that's going to be restored afterwards?
Through the chair, yes, they do. There's an operational works permit that they require, and that has a pre-start inspection. So that manages the works that are going to be done and the reinstatement. From our perspective, in line with the traffic pre-lodgement process, we are engaging with our internal teams, so the beaches and open space team and our specialist engineers, to see that the side track that we would like from a pedestrian perspective is viable. There has been concerns raised about cumulative impacts, developments one after the other, and whether the dunal area has had time to regenerate. So we will refer that to the experts. If it can't be done, then we'll look at an alternative.
Lara, I saw those lollies. What's this? Come to committee today, don't present and want to steal the lollies. Unbelievable. Councillor Gates.
Thanks, Chair.
I'm sure this came about from a general business item that I may have been overzealous with, asking that councillors be informed of all temporary road closures. But what I was wondering is, in reading the temporary road closure acceptable impact guideline, I didn't see anything anywhere about consultation with councillors. Did I miss it, or is it excluded from that document? Because what I was hoping, I'll cut to the chase, was that there could be a new 2 that said that prior to the issue of a CMP, divisional councillors will be consulted regarding high impact closures that involve either full or partial road closures, which may result in limited access or necessitate detours. The problem that I experienced was that the construction management plan on a project in Division 3 was issued before I had any knowledge of it. I had knowledge when the road closed, and it was actually some essential infrastructure, so I understand it had to be closed. But during the consultation with officers, the officers agreed to it and issued the permit well before I was aware. And I would have hoped that we could have managed a partial road closure. And I just think that there's occasions where, as representatives, we might be more familiar with the use of a road for whatever reason, and that if we just had that opportunity of consultation before a construction management plan were issued, it would highlight our awareness for a start and let us consider what our view was in response to your expertise and guidance. I just feel like more and more we're finding out way too late about issues that have a big impact on our community. So I don't know why we couldn't have a part of the guideline that suggests that early in the piece, councillors are consulted only in relation to the ones that you say earlier on page 20, I think it was. There's a piece about councillors' consultation, and it says exactly what I've just read to you, that divisional councillors are currently informed of high impact closures that involve either full or partial road closures, So why can't that be part of the guideline that actually commits you to informing us in advance of the situation? I know it's an internal one for Councillor Young.
So, Rav, I think there might have been 2 or 3 questions in amongst that to come answer for first, but can we get clarification first on what is in the guideline specifically to call out consultation with councillors? Does it sit in the guideline, or is there a separate policy area? Where can we see that in black and white to have confidence in it?
Through the chair, on page 12, we talk about road closures with detours or limited access. So what we're proposing is if this framework is adopted and they meet the guiding principles, then it would be a notification to the local councillor. If they do not meet it, then there would be consultation on every occasion. So what we've proposed is crane installation is a maximum of 2 days, removal 2 days. Operational works, which was the project that you referred to, is a maximum of 5 days. So we're learning from those works in your division was that, yes, we would certainly consult with you because they would not meet the guideline.
It went on for 12 months, over 12 months, and then a development started and there was another road closure of the same area. And I just feel that it needs to be in black and white that councillors have the courtesy of being involved when there's the likelihood of a big closure over a long period of time.
So, Councillor Gates, the second part I want to pick up on, because you started talking about construction management plans, which are different to road closure applications. So can I just get a clarification on that? Because are we seeking consultation on road closures or consultation on CMPs? Because CMPs involve a myriad of things.
Well, I was looking at the guidelines, to be honest, Chair, and trying to make sure that there was something formalised for us. And number 2 in the guidelines was the construction management plan. So I was trying to get ahead of the game to make sure that that councillors are aware and able to consider.
So, officers, so hearing Councillor Gates's main concern there and the intent of it, so I don't think it's a desire to see the entire construction management plan, because that's 1,000 pages, but the concerns around the impacts of CMP then leading to road closures. Can we get some advice on, is that dealt with in this guideline, or how can we tighten this up so that councillors have got confidence of their level of consultation and notification?
Through the chair, this specific framework is an external facing operational document for developments that have gone through the planning department, not so much where it is a state government project, things like that. But absolutely, my understanding for that project was that the divisional councillor was informed. So that was the path that we went down, but certainly a learning that we got from that project. But we can consult on the larger projects, but it's a matter of time frame, I guess, and knowing that.
Chairman, maybe we don't need to change that outward-facing guideline, but maybe we just need to add a 3 that divisional councillors must be consulted regarding high-impact closures that involve either full or partial road closures that may result in limited access or necessitate detours.
Rav, Gareth, so our thoughts on that the guideline is a forward-facing document, mainly meant for the industry to have clarity of what the expectations are, and the community can see that too. If we added that in, kind of sounds like that's your intent anyway. Is there a concern for adding that on and calling it out that way?
Through the chair, I do have some concerns around the operational and the timing of permits. If we were to consult on every road closure, because we get
Councillor Gates and Archer, everyone, she's specifically called out the high impact ones.
The high impact ones. My apologies. If we consult on the high impact ones, again, there was about 655 of those that will lengthen the application timeline, and they're
not necessarily if it's done in parallel, which is the question raised earlier.
Correct.
Right. So I'm definitely getting a sense of where we're going with this, and I think we've kind of got no choice but to add it into the recommendation and call it out if I'm reading the intent of committee.
I'm happy to second Councillor Gates.
What it may have to be with is an expectation that possibly it's for a period, and then in maybe 12 months' time you come back with a follow-up report, maybe where it shows where it's working, where it's not working, what the impacts have been, and where possibly we can redefine what high impact is to reduce the amount that are coming through. Might be a path forward.
I don't mind.
Councillor Gates, what would you think of that if we put in your suggested wording for today with an expectation in 12 months' time these officers report back on the impacts of it and where it has worked, where it hasn't worked?
I'm happy with that, Chairman, but what I'm concerned about is it says in the body of this agenda item, it says divisional councillors are currently informed. It says exactly what I'm asking, but from your response, it seems to me that you're intending not to do that because it's going to take too much time. But the report actually suggests you already do that.
Is this a terminology thing of your definition of consultation versus inform, possibly?
Sorry, through the chair, if you wouldn't mind, Councillor Gates. The intention of the guidelines being an external, being an external document, is to inform and just guide. If the developer or the construction company can meet those guidelines, then the approach is that we don't seek consultation. But because the guidelines call out that any high impact activity would require consultation, so that therefore they don't meet those guidelines, we would automatically be seeking councillor consultation and feedback on that, and at the soonest possible opportunity from when we receive the application. With the CMP, it might be a bit difficult because the CMP could be months in advance, and we are not engaged until closer to the actual requirement for the application for a temporary road closure.
I understand that, and I don't think Councillor Gates' intent was to get in the CMPs. It's about the road closure side of it. So, Councillor Gates, were they your suggested words that have come up as 3?
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Right. Councillor Doran, input?
Sorry, Chair. Could I just clarify? Michael has, I think you've just said, if I've got it right, that what we're putting up at number 3 is already done under current guidelines or policy internally.
Through the chair, that is correct, councillor. Wherever possible, if the intention is, if it does not meet those guidelines, we will be seeking council consultation.
Yeah.
Don't care.
And when you say where possible, what do you mean by where possible?
Oh, sorry, not yeah. If it does not meet the guidelines and it's a high impact, then immediately we will be seeking council consultation on those. Sorry if I said where possible.
Sorry, where possible got
My apologies. No.
Councillor O'Neill, do you have a suggestion on an improvement to that possibly?
I was just thinking, Councillor Gates, did you want to add anything about the timing of when councillors should be consulted?
I think I'm obviously having trouble communicating my concern. My concern was that approval was given prior to any conversation with myself, and I presume that's happening for others as well. And all I'm trying to do is make sure that there is an awareness, and in the body of the document that we have, it says that we're currently informed of high impact closures, and I just wanted to reinforce that that would be ongoing, because the outward document didn't mention any consultation, but I understand now that that document is a reference point for people making application, and they don't need to know what our internal workings are like. But I just feel that with what is happening here, unless we stipulate that we still want to be informed of those outcomes for high impact and partial road closures, I mean, often the officers aren't aware they're going to go for 12 months either. I know the difficulties here, that problems can arise. You can hit rock, or, a development application comes one on top of the other. But from my experience, I would prefer to see that we are still going to be consulted about these high impact issues that may affect our residents.
So I don't think there's any problem personally if we're hearing from Michael that it's already what the intent is, to call it out in black and white's no problem. We just added some words in there which I'm not sure if they are necessary or not, or Councillor Gates needed those in there, because implementation can mean different things. I think as it was probably okay.
Who suggested that one?
I think they might have picked up on something Councillor O'Neill was getting to, but I think those words are okay still. So the last part of it, Councillor Gates, and maybe it was kind of where Councillor O'Neill was getting to, was I think when Councillor Young raised the 3 days issue before.
But that's what they don't want to do, because that's everything. And I understand the difficulty. Councillor Young was just showing me the previous resolution, and it said that we are always consulted prior to approval of road closure applications in relation to subsequent extensions of time. I get that the officers don't want to consult us on every possible road closure because of the number of them, but since you're already telling us about high impact road closures and partial road closures, I would like to see that reiterated.
That's fine. Do you want to add in, so Councillor Young raised the concern that 3 days wasn't enough and this just been done in parallel?
And I think the mapping should be added in as well, that for, as raised by both Councillor Fowler and Councillor Martin, do you need to have?
I think the officers took that as we can happily do that anyway. And is it a set thing, the 3 days that Councillor Young referred to, is that the set time frame, or is there an ability to call out how many days, the minimum amount of days that will be given for consultation?
Through the chair, the 3 days came about from the last general business item, and the fact that we were working on an operational perspective as to every application. This framework relates to the traffic pre-lodgement process, where we have 20 business days. So once we get to what we believe is a reasonable outcome, because sometimes they'll come to us
Should it say in advance?
with more than what we're going to accept. Once we come to a reasonable outcome, we can certainly we will consult with the local councillors
So
then.
I think we've all heard that. I'm interested in the amount of days. So is it going to be that you get 24 hours, or we get 72 hours, you get 5 days? Like, when can a councillor expect to get the email to say, be notified and we're seeking your input on this? Is that 3 days out, 5 days out? Do we need to have that in black and white? Is that too inflexible to have it as a set requirement?
Through the chair, it's difficult to meet at times. We have an example, we have a development in Broadbeach kicking off. They wanted to kick off 2 weeks ago and we've already delayed them. And we had to have a Teams meeting on Monday to get to an acceptable impact. So I sent the email last night as soon as I had that. And we're hoping to be able to send or issue the permit for Monday. So I'd be happy to go with 3 days, if 5 days, if you think that's... I'm open to suggestions, but it will delay the permit issuance.
Councillor Gates, it's your motion at this stage. Did you feel the need to have a time frame in there? Are you happy to leave it as that for now and let this run and see how it works?
I do understand the difficulty for the officers, but I'm not sure that what I've even got there helps us any unless we say in advance of. Because it's not just notification, it's happening that we need. It's notification when an application is received, so that if we do have a concern...
So could I make a suggestion? So if there's a pre-lodgement process happening now, is there an ability that possibly the notification of a potential high-impact closure could be given at the start of that 20-day process instead of waiting for the end? So if there's a pre-lodgement sort and it's been ticked the box that's going to be high impact, is there a reason we couldn't have a notification of it that early? Then it leaves it on the councillor to say, I'd like to have a follow-up meeting on that, or I'd like to know more about that one.
Through the chair, we can do that, yes. I'd just like to call out that the pre-lodgement is 80, well, I think it's 96 that we've had this year. So it's not for every application.
Okay.
So there's an operational aspect as well as...
Okay, so alternate thinking then, what if it's at the lodgement stage? So if it gets lodged today and someone ticks the box saying it's high impact, they most likely tick the box for themselves because they've met a threshold, or as soon as you identify it's high impact, could there be a notification go out to the divisional councillor to say, please be aware, a high impact closure request has been received today. If you'd like a briefing on it, please request one, and then maybe in 30 days time or 45 days time, whatever it is, when it's getting to the stage of we'd like to go ahead with it, the second notification email comes out.
Through the chair, yes, we can do that from an operational perspective. For full road closures or partial closures that involve a detour, we require minimum 7 days written notice to residents of the closure. So potentially 10 days out from the closure, we can be consulting with your office.
Councillor Gates, does that sound a little bit more like something that would achieve what we're seeking?
All we're asking for is advance understanding in case there are issues.
Yeah. So that example I just gave officers of saying at the kind of time of it being lodged, would that be clear instead of it just saying in advance? Because that might be... At
lodgement.
At time of lodgement, or as close to as at time of lodgement. If we were going to meet that intent I just outlined, what words would make that clear in that resolution?
Through the chair, probably as reasonably as practicable, and considering resources, sometimes the lodgement, they may lodge it.
It's all right. I don't think any councillor is going to hammer you because it doesn't happen the day of, but so maybe councillor, it's reasonably practical at the time of lodgement, something like that.
Correct, yes.
Councillor Gates, how are we feeling about that?
I'm happy.
Other councillors, does that meet what we were seeking? We'll give a bit more clarity what the process is going to be. Councillor Doran, itching for input. Okay, so in that case, if there's no other suggested amendments to Councillor Gates's proposed change recommendation.
And if I can just say, I don't want to go on about this, but the area that I represent is hugely impacted by road closures at the moment with the Coomera Connector. And I know it's not anything that you have any control over whatsoever, but it has made me, as a representative, far more sensitive to the issues facing the community. And so on that basis, I just want to be as informed as I possibly can in representing the people of Division 3, and that's the reason that I've taken this opportunity to have that paragraph included. I hope you understand.
Fair enough. So Councillor Gates is happy to move the change recommendation. Councillor Young is happy to second it. Councillor Gates, are you happy to take that as your opening?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so I'll take that as the opening. A speaker against the change recommendation? I'll open to the floor for anyone that wishes to speak on it. Councillor Doran.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Gates for the change. I just wanted to add some further commentary. So the external framework is good. It gives the market, the industry, certainty over what's required, and I think that that's a good change. But there are other stakeholders here that I think most of the councillors in their questioning today has focused their attention on, and that's the community, which we represent, which are affected by these closures, sometimes temporary, sometimes for a year, and sometimes because the maximum is 12 months, and then sometimes again if there's an extension. And I think that whilst I understand that the officers have got a great volume, Chair, of work to get through, and the time constraints in order to issue those permits are important to the industry and to the timelines for those construction, there's also a really important stakeholder in the representatives of the local community, because as Councillor Gates indicated, there is sometimes a local nuance that needs to be at least threshed out, and sometimes it needs to be communicated more detailed, in a more detailed way to the community so that they are fully aware as to what's coming. And that's probably my experience. In my experience in the time in this office, road closures do generate significant voices from the community, and I've experienced that as we've gone through the process of Stadium Drive and around our stadiums and 2 construction sites on one street, which is a common occurrence on the coastal suburbs as well. But I think the important part of this is that we're saying to the industry with this framework, here is a document, we are going to get these out to you as quickly as possible. But in the change that Councillor Gates is putting forward, it's also requesting officers acknowledge that we want to be involved in that process. We want to be consultants. And I think there's been a mood by some councillors in my time here that we want to take back a bit of authority and a bit of responsibility for these decisions. We don't get to make the decision, but we do want to be informed of it. And there's a lot of times when we're informed after the fact, and then we've got to scramble for communication out to the public. And I think that the information to us earlier is good. If it turns out that in that 12-month period when Michael and we report back that we've been overwhelmed by the amount of work that we've had to do, then you might see a correction. But I think giving us the opportunity to be involved in that process is actually going to be a good thing. And if it turns out that there's more than we thought, then we can adjust it. But I think having the opportunity to get sightline to it, to communicate to the community as the second piece of this puzzle is really important. And I welcome Councillor Gates' change.
Anyone else wish to contribute? If I could just quickly, so this actually came about because of 2 GBIs that we jammed together on the day, and they were 2 GBIs coming from 2 different directions. Councillor Gates was very much from community impact and councillor consultation, and my GBI was from hearing from the industry and the development sector and construction sector that there was inconsistency in how we were applying this, and that it was getting more and more difficult to understand the impacts of this in certain parts of the city. So it was actually a perfect day to put those 2 GBIs together and consider it, because in the end, these officers have to deal with a policy that is somehow holistic across the entire city, when I think what we've heard today is that these impacts range across the city and how they're felt by the community. So I just wanted to call out that I'd sincere thank you to Rav and Michael and the team, because I know this is one that has gone through a really interesting process of consultation with all those different stakeholders, and the fact that we actually deferred this item for one more round so you could go out and do additional consultation, because there was a genuine attempt, I felt, to make sure that it did bring some very practical guidelines and guardrails for the construction and development sector, but also some clarity to what the impacts to community would look like. I've appreciated the conversation today about where councillors fit into that level of consultation. I think we've hit a good point that it's not about every single one, it's about the high impact ones. And even inside that definition of 650 high impact, I think we'll actually find that it's 10% of those are actually really contentious where our input is needed the most. And there may be a chance in the future to even refine this further of what a real high impact versus the stock standard high impact is. But agree with Councillor Doran, it's a good change from Councillor Gates. It puts us in the right mix of in between understanding the impacts of development and construction, because it's not just about developers, it's construction in general, but where we sit in that piece and the feelings the community has around the impacts of this. Councillor Gates, did you wish to close the item? In that case, we will vote on the change recommendation. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried unanimous. Officers, thank you very much. Appreciate your time on that one. Councillors, I am not aware of any GBI items. Here we go. Here we go. I'll go to Councillor Young first.
Yes, I just wanted to ask a question. Given the two items we had about petitions today, which both related to development applications, I just wonder about the efficiency of that process. I know we've got a dedicated process for the reception and consideration of petitions, but the doors are open for anybody to lodge a petition, therefore, on any application, development application that comes through, and including code accessible, which is going to chew up a lot of time potentially. So I just wonder if we might want to look at refining it, defining some kind of policy where if it's a petition about a development application, for example, we might just refer it to the officers for consideration in their review of the matter. It doesn't entitle the people necessarily to the third-party objector rights, but it's tabled, it's considered, and then we don't need to get a report at a later point in time necessarily.
So before I come to Councillor Gates quickly, I heard in there the idea of not receiving it. I think the problem with that concept is that at the time of the petition, we don't necessarily know if an application is going to be resolved by officers or come to committee. So both of these applications were resolved by officers in the end, hence no DA report to committee, and because normally the petition would be wrapped up in the DA report.
Yeah.
So Councillor Gates, did you have input on this?
What I was going to say was it's the Local Government Act that requires us to either accept or not accept a petition. So we're obliged to present them.
Yep.
So I don't...
I'm not arguing that we should not accept it. I just think that we should refine a process for petitions about development applications, because otherwise we're going to have...
Councillor Young, if you wouldn't mind, because it's been a while, we actually haven't, I don't ever remember us having two like this in one report, in one committee before. I might have a chat with Alicia and Mick and Lara and Roger about, because my understanding is that because they already have to write a report that's available on PD Online, that what's in these petition responses that come through like this is fairly limited and just pulled from the existing report, that it's not a huge burden on officer time to create these two reports. But we might get some further input from Alicia and Mick and Roger and Lara about how much time it actually takes and if there's a need for refinement.
I'm happy to have a chat with officers offline over the next month and come back to the next committee.
Yeah, please.
I'll talk with the EGM, acting EGM, who will have a finger on the pulse here, and Mick Moran and people like that. Thanks.
Yeah, just to see what the actual impact on officer time is, and if even under the Local Government Act we have a way to refine it further or not, because I suspect sometime in the future when we end up with e-petitions being accepted, we're going to have a lot more of these, and yeah, possibly. There was a very hot contest between Councillor Gates and Councillor Patterson of whose hand was up next. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. With your indulgence, I'd like to request to submit a late GBI.
This is on the back of the emails
one that I've just sent you. And I think it's in line and supports Councillor Fowler's previous GBI. It just supports Sunshine Coast's motion. Sunshine Coast are putting forward a motion at LGA conference that the state investigates options for managing the storage of recreational vehicles on roads. It comes from the same premise of what Councillor Fowler's GBI does. And although we're waiting to get a report back, I don't think it hurts for us to send a message to the state that we'd like them to explore this. And that's all it does. It's not saying they should stop RVs on the roads. It's just saying for them to explore. So
can I just check? Obviously, this would be a GBI committee, then it had to go through council for ratification.
Yeah.
Is the next full council meeting before or after the LGA conference?
It's before.
Okay, so you would achieve that that goal.
So it's just to say, I'll give the wording, but that council support the Sunshine Coast motion at the 2025 conference, investigating options for managing the storage of. If you're happy to accept that, I'll give the wording.
I'm happy in the principal idea that it is different to Councillor Fowler's previous GBI, which calls a report on it. It's about a motion to the LGAQ conference. It probably didn't need to even come through this committee. You could have jammed it through GAF this afternoon and given everyone a chance to read it beforehand. But
yeah, it does really relate to regulations. I can do it in GAF if you prefer.
So I'll be led by a committee here. So I appreciate, because it's the LGAQ conference coming up and we need to get it through committee and through full council.
Brought to my attention. I've only seen it this morning whilst sitting in this meeting, actually. I've sent the attachment to all committee members of what the motion is. And as I said, it's not saying RVs can't be on the roads. We're not asking the state for that. We're just asking that the state investigate it.
All right, so
yes,
yep, that's fine. So we're gonna let's let a recommendation.
Sorry,
we've got time, so I'm gonna let this one play out a little bit, and we'll let the proposed GBI go up because there isn't a time constraint with the LGAQ conference, and then I'll let councillors have their input.
I just want to see the motion of the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, please.
If we, noting that there's a report coming back that is probably being worked on, that's probably looking at the nuance of impacts on change to current local laws or laws. If we were to do this general business item in support of a motion at the LGAQ, does that then, and it's endorsed at full council, does that then become our policy, a council policy? Because if we're endorsing something as a council, and that's the motion, does that then set forth, just a genuine question, as
you can once he's had a chance to finish.
Yeah.
Does that then become council policy?
Right. So, Nikki, I think that question was directed at you in the first place, and then I'll allow Councillor Patterson's input.
Through the chair, that wording as it stands doesn't really the decision of council, should that be passed at council, is that this council supports that council's motion tabled at the conference.
Yep. Which is the differential I'm seeing between Councillor Fowler's previous GBI, which was a report looking for a series of things to be looked at, versus a very direct, this is about LGAQ conference and a motion going to that conference, which I don't think ties us to anything. Councillor Fowler, then Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, I think where we're currently at with this issue, so I just responded via email back to Councillor Patterson. So we raised the GBI about the long-term parking of trailers, boats and caravans on local and state roads. I did that in April, and looking at the forward planning schedule, we've got a report coming back. The purpose for that was so that city officers had the opportunity to relook at all options on the table. So it wasn't a decision either way. It was what is available to us from a legislative perspective. What are the unintended consequences of any of these actions that we may take? And every option on the table so that council then can deliberate and make a decision on the best way forward. So I don't think that's a predetermined outcome. I think that that's a good process to go through. And the other thing I'll note is that this council did look at this 6 years ago, and there was a report brought back to council. The reason that I personally felt it was time to relook at it, we've had a change in state government. We do have a rise of these complaints, and this issue is escalating in our streets. So it's timely to relook at it. But I don't support us, I guess, having a predetermined outcome or a position without seeing that report that's coming to council.
Okay. So I've let Councillor Fowler input, Councillor Patterson for your input, and then we'll look to move on from there.
So I am a big supporter of what Councillor Fowler's done, and that absolutely should go through. But as Councillor Fowler just pointed out, that is looking at what we can do within the current legislation. The point of Sunshine Coast is say to the state government, hey, is your state legislation right? Can you please have a look at it? Because the report that we're being brought back is within the box of what state currently allows us to do. As I said, this is not saying to the state government they should change it. It's just saying, can you please have a look at it? And in fact, if this gets up, then the report that we've brought back will be quite useful and can inform the state. So I don't see them in conflict. I think that they're very supportive of each other. It just enables us to have a position. Someone is going to vote on this on behalf of the city at conference. By doing this, it just means that they've got the support of the planning committee and council.
And
Thanks.
and I think that's a very important point Councillor Patterson added on at the end, that our delegates to that conference will have to vote on this motion, so it will at least give a resolution of council behind it. Can I just check, Councillor Patterson, is number 2 the actual motion from Sunshine Coast?
Yes.
So,
sorry, if it's not. Sorry, it's not really a 2.
yeah, can we
it's just
make
if you
it
could
to a preamble,
maybe
then
just,
the recommendation is 1?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we'll just get that addressed first, because I think that's important, that the preamble is the suggested motion and that there is just 1 recommendation. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I like that a lot better. Now we'll just delete the second part, so we've just got a 1. Okay, so now that that is cleaner, Councillor Martin, your hand was up first, and Councillor Doran. Oh. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was just for my knowledge, you sort of touched on it about voting. I was interested in whether this was a letter that's distributed or if it's a vote. Are you able to just briefly explain to me how that works? Do we get 1 vote, and who's voting on our behalf?
Councillor Patterson's attended more of these than me, so Councillor Patterson.
It's 1 or 2 votes that we have, and
2 from memory for our council of our size.
And so I don't think we've defined who the delegates are, but basically we get a ticket, a vote, and you go through the 100 resolutions and you're putting your hand up. So for most of those, the person who goes as the delegate is making a decision on behalf of council. So if there's some that we feel quite strongly about one way or another, it just makes more sense rather than one person putting their hand up and saying this is what the Gold Coast thinks, that we've done a bit more of an informed decision first.
Does that give you that bit more context, Councillor Martin?
It does on this matter, but it also raises some questions for me about if we send a delegate. Is it up to the delegate?
Councillor Martin is nominating himself to be a delegate to the LGAQ conference.
Well, if there's 2.
So it's a common practice. It's what every council in Queensland has to do. There's so many resolutions you do not want this council to be looking at them. There'll be something about up in North Queensland and you go, yeah, I'll support the North Queensland guys, And I think you will get a list of the resolutions if person is a delegate. If there is anything that's kind of sensitive or very Gold Coast related, it would make sense that you get some kind of buy-in or understanding from here and the mayor what you're thinking. But one hand in the air doesn't necessarily make that much difference. But I think on this one, it makes sense that we've got a position rather than it just being one vote.
So could I check, Nikki, are you aware, because typically there would be a resolution of council of who the delegates are to the conference. So I'm guessing that's coming to the September full council meeting.
Yes, Chair. So traditionally, we will also circulate an email to all councillors calling for motions that then get presented to a council meeting as well.
Yep.
So we can certainly do that. If council's also minded, we could pull some of those submitted motions from the LGAQ and actually form them as part of a brief report if council wanted to get full endorsement of some of those proposed motions for the delegate prior to the LGA conference.
Okay. Councillor Martin, you happy with that for now? Yeah. Councillor Doran, no input on this one? Councillor Gates, did I see you for input on this one? Cool. All right. Councillor O'Neill?
I was in the council 6 years ago when we addressed this, and it is legislative. So unless the state government makes some changes, we won't see any changes in our streets. And I, for one, in my division, have a huge problem with long, more than 7.5 metre cars and trailers being parked forever. And I think that they should have storage. So I think the state needs to address this. So I think us supporting a motion at the conference was a good idea. So I'll be supporting it.
Councillor Fowler?
Thank you, Chair. Would you mind if possibly we ask the advice of the City Inspectorate General Manager that supporting this today doesn't have any impacts over the report that's coming through to Council?
Here's a Mr Connery we prepared earlier. Luke, did you hear that question? Your input?
Through the Chair, Councillor, I don't believe that this particular motion would necessarily impact the outcomes of that particular report. As you're aware, we're really investigating, I guess, the intersection of the TORM under state law and then local law and whether there's the ability to actually look at that particular issue. So for this specific motion, I don't believe that would actually impact at this stage.
Is there any other input on this general business item? So just before we go to a vote, so Nikki, are we comfortable that a general email is going to go out to all councillors with some of those motions that are being considered at the LGA conference for councillors to consider, and that at the next full council meeting there will be an opportunity if we want to make positions on other motions, we can do that at that time?
Chair, certainly if we can access those motions, we will do so and circulate them to councillors at the earliest opportunity, ready for the council meeting.
And do you have a line of sight of when the email going out asking for interest from councillors of being the delegates to the conference might be?
I'll have that out today.
Very good. Councillor Martin's already nominated. It's on the Gold Coast. It's an easy one. Don't have to travel for it. Okay, so that is Councillor Patterson's GBI. A seconder for the general business item? Yes. Councillor Young. We'll take the vote on the matter. All those in favour?
Sorry, can I just make a request that we put an S on support, just for grammatical
Fair enough. Can we
benefit?
S the supports? We've lost our recommendation completely now.
And if I can speak to it. Thanks.
You broke the computer, Councillor Patterson.
Pardon?
You broke the computer. You made it think halfway through a click, and look what you've done. Councillor Patterson, while our support staff get it back up, do you want to talk to it briefly while they're doing that?
Yes, thank you. This has been a contentious issue for our residents for a while, having large vehicles parked in local streets. As Councillor Fowler mentioned, it has been brought to Council a number of times looking at how we can manage this, and Councillor Fowler has raised a general business item that has Council look at what we can do within the current state restrictions and laws. Today we're supporting Sunshine Coast Council's motion at conference to request the state government look into this, to look into what other options are there other than having large vehicles placed in local roads. So we look forward to supporting Sunshine Coast and making sure that our local roads are more comfortable for all. Thank you.
For fairness, I'll check there's no one wishes to speak against the GBI. Councillor Patterson, take that as your close. All those in favour of the agenda GBI? Against? Councillor Doran, how are you voting? Very good. That vote was carried unanimous. I'm scared to ask now, do I have any other late GBIs? Oh, yes.
Late GBI, but something that I need to raise here today. Everyone would be aware that the Minister has indicated his intention to call in the Dreamworld application, but in doing so is inviting submissions in relation to the proposal. And I'm wondering through you to the EGM how it's proposed to manage that, given that the report and conditions were ready to come to Council, that the officers had a mindset of what needed to occur in order to provide that approval, which I understand there was a recommendation for approval, but there were 2 issues outstanding that the officers had concern with. But that has been superseded by a council decision that actually requested this call-in. So how do the officers still present their view of the conditions that need to be applied, and how will that submission process work is what I'm hoping to understand.
The acting EGM like to handball that straight to Mick.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Councillor Gates, at this point we don't have a kind of a clear pathway forward on how that correspondence would go back to the Deputy Premier. For all the councillors' benefit, yesterday we received a letter from the state government, so it was the Deputy Premier's proposed call-in notice for the Dreamworld application. I'm happy to give a little bit of background on the application, not the details necessarily, but the application, the call-in process, and then what could happen following that. So Councillor Gates is obviously aware of the Dreamworld application, but for other councillors, we've had a DA lodged with the city. I think it was lodged late 23. And this application was for the Dreamworld land. So Dreamworld put in an application for it's called a variation request, which some of you are probably more familiar with, a preliminary approval and a subdivision. So their proposal was to basically create their own code for their Dreamworld land for the theme park, so continue the tourism theme park uses in there. They had a commercial precinct sort of close to the M1, which would include, I guess, a range of commercial uses, fringe business, some tourist accommodation, and then Dreamworld also owned land closer to the Coomera Town Centre, and that land was proposed to be used for residential purposes. And there was a subdivision application combined in with that application. That DA hasn't yet been decided. Officers had sort of progressed it to, I guess, it was on the draft agenda with a recommendation that the application be approved with conditions. Prior to the agenda being printed, the applicant under the Act stopped the clock, as we call it. So what it effectively does is prevents the city from making a decision on that application until the applicant elects to start the clock again. So at this point in time, the application is sitting there on pause, if you like. The applicant has not stopped the clock. In June, you'd remember that the city or that the council resolved to write to the Deputy Premier requesting that he call in the application. That letter was sent to the Deputy Premier in June. This call-in notice that I sent around yesterday references that letter from the council. And so at this point in time, where we're at is the Deputy Premier's written to the city, he's written to principal submitters and the applicant asking for their views on whether or not there's a state interest,
whether or not he should call in the application, and if there are any other matters in his call-in notice that we would like to make a submission on. We've got until the 26th of September to write back with our submission. After that, the Deputy Premier then, at his discretion, makes a decision on whether he will call in the application. In his call-in notice, he has indicated that if he does, he will be deciding the application. The Minister or the Deputy Premier has a few options. They can either decide the application themselves, direct the decision maker, the council, to do certain things, but in this instance he's actually flagged that he would decide the application in lieu of the city deciding the application. During that process, it's not common to get a call-in notice. I think the only other one I've dealt with is Arundel Hills. I can only sort of assume that if he does decide to call in the application, he would ask for the city's material on file that we have for the application to help him put conditions on. He may ask for draft conditions from the city, or he may not. We don't know. I guess it's at the discretion of the Minister to do that. So that's kind of an overview. I guess at this point I don't have a firm direction, just because we received it yesterday, on how we do respond for Arundel Hills. The process was that the CEO wrote to the Minister at the time, made the statement that it wasn't up to local government to tell the Minister what state interests are, and then referenced the council resolution on Arundel Hills, which obviously was to refuse that DA. So for this one here, the only council resolution we have in relation to the Dreamworld DA is that the council's already decided and resolved to write to the Minister and request a call-in.
Okay, so I have no issue at all with the state deciding it. My only issue is that the community still has submission rights, and I'm presuming that, like, there's a 16-storey residential tower proposed. It's at the very busiest intersection of the Gold Coast, where the traffic is just horrible. So I'm just hopeful that I have had no consultation whatsoever as the divisional councillor, and I think that there was an indication that the Deputy Premier had hoped to talk with both myself, the member for Coomera, and the member for Theodore. I know there's been gatherings with the two state members, but not with me. I'm hopeful that maybe in the coming weeks, or a week, it's 20 days, isn't it, that we have, that there may be an opportunity for me simply to make or to re-emphasise the points of concern that the officers had. And there were only two that I'm aware of. And my only concern is that the community has the ability to contribute on that massive change to what is already a really busy intersection. So,
Mick, can you clarify the application went through public notification already?
Mr. Chair, it did get publicly notified.
So all submitters to the application will be consulted as part of the proposed call-in?
That's correct, yep.
Councillor Young, your question.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just had a question about the preliminary assessment, shall we say, by officers, and Councillor Gates has already alluded to the traffic being one of the significant issues. Is the environment or other environmental issues that you're aware of, Mick?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, look, there are environmental issues that were kind of deliberated on throughout the application process. Where we got to with our recommendation was that, as proposed, the application could be approved. That was, I guess, taking into account the SARA response. So the state government, through SARA, provided its concurrence response on the DA, which included some conditions around managing the... Apologies. Yeah. Included conditions around managing that environmental corridor, which sort of bisects the site. So our conditions were reflective of that, and we believe that those conditions actually resulted in an environmental outcome that complied with our planning scheme.
Thank you. So just a comment, if you don't mind, Chair. I think it would be wise for us to resolve and, well, when's the next council meeting?
The 16th,
17th, I think. So it's before that date, and that would give us, if we made a recommendation to council that it resolves to appoint the CEO to write to the minister and provide the assessment that officers had undertaken and the conditions that they were contemplating.
So that kind of gets, I think, to where Mick was looking for, was something needs to come to the full council meeting, most likely the draft letter or the draft correspondence in full that we're suggesting to send to the Deputy Premier. Would that be what we're looking at the moment?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's something we could do. I guess the options in that letter, or there might be options presented to the council, again, just because it's all sort of happened so quickly. I don't have a really firm recommendation on how we should do that, but at this point some of the options might be that we treat it in the same way as we did with Arundel Hills and leave the state interest to the state, and then provide a copy of the council resolution that has already been made. Or another option is that we can in a way provide our development assessment comments in this letter as well, as an option for the Deputy Premier to consider before making his call in.
So, Mick, how could we possibly, could the draft, if there's two versions, so is what I'm kind of hearing, there's kind of two options that you've got in your head, noting that you literally got the letter yesterday, so give you a bit more time, but could the option A and option B be sent out via memo to councillors beforehand to allow them to have input, and then the final letter to be endorsed by council be done so at full council?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think we probably could, but I might take that on notice.
That's
if that's
fine.
Okay.
Councillor Young, was that kind of what you had in your head?
I wasn't contemplating that we would review the application and the draft conditions or any outcomes. Just place that trust entirely in the CEO and his delegated, with his delegated authority, and provide that as a package of information to the government, and we don't have any input, we don't have any assessment, and we don't have any influence over what those professional perceptions are.
Understood. All right, so noting that, as I think Mick has stressed the point, he literally got the letter yesterday. We're still unpacking and still seeking further advice from the state of exactly what they want at this time. So maybe when we have more of an idea in that, Mick, an update can provide to councillors before the full council meeting?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, happy to do that. Yep.
Cool.
Chairman, can I just close off? I appreciate that you have acknowledged it was an impact assessable application which allowed community submissions, but there were elements of the application that I understood Dreamworld wished to have if they got their preliminary approval as code accessible moving through. And I'm aware that a lot of members of Division 3 had no idea the application was even advertised. So my hope was that they would have their opportunity down the track. And I don't know what the government intends, but I am sure that Dreamworld were of the hope that everything would become code accessible within that site if a preliminary approval was issued in that way. So my concern is that there is still an opportunity, and there's a possibility I won't be at the full council meeting, which is why, Chairman, I have raised this today, because I'll know by tomorrow whether or not I'm going to be at the full council meeting, but it's a medical issue with my husband. So I just wanted to air my views today.
So, Mick, can I just check the prelim, Mick Lara, the prelim that was under assessment would have included that future applications are code. So there's nothing new in that. What went to public notification was a prelim that included an assessment table for future things being made code. I just want to make it clear that, so no one could get confused that Councillor Gates is suggesting there's anything new being added. That was exactly what went to public notification, was a prelim variation that included that future development permits will be code for these uses.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
And secondly, just thinking of the Arundel example again, when that was actually called in, isn't there another public notification period on the back of a call in? There's not the same appeal rights, but there's still a public notification period?
Mr. Chair, to the best of my knowledge, that's actually up to the discretion of the Minister or the Deputy Premier in this instance. So the Act actually gives him sort of quite a broad range of powers in this regard. So whether it's publicly notified again would be a future decision for the DP to make.
Which is possibly where the Divisional Councillor could provide input before a final letter is decided at council or resolved for the CEO to send when we get that further advice to come out. Councillor Gates, did you have anything else on this for today? Does any other councillor have any questions on the call-in process or what we know at this time, noting that Mick will provide an update before full council where it's up to and what the intended path is? Very good. Now I'm really scared to ask if there's anything else. I don't think we need a motion. Like Mick's already given an indication of what we're going to do with it.
I'll probably look to Nikki here to answer that one, but if we're able to sort of bring this report to the full council meeting with everyone's understanding that that'll get on the agenda, I don't know that we need a motion.
I don't think we need a motion on that. That's definitely the intent, as I understood it from the CEO all the way down, was that we've got the full council meeting before the cut-off date. We would use that opportunity, and if for some unknown reason we can't be ready for the full council meeting, we'll do what we do with Arundel and pull a special council meeting the day before on the 25th if we needed to. Is the option up our sleeve as well? But we might just let Mick go do what he needs to do to come back with that advice first if everyone's happy with that. Any further matters to raise today? Meeting closed 10:35.